Do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that is taking place among you to test you as though something strange were happening to you. Really? I'd like to invite you to join me mounting a 10,000 feet above the ground perspective from which to scan life, the course of life, and its ordeals. So if we begin by leaping over the ordeals meted out by the natural disasters, food scarcity, and virulent predators suffered by our truly ancient ancestors. You remember Homo erectus, Homo sapien, Neanderthals. If we leap right over them and land at the beginning of our faith tradition's narrative, a mere 3,400 years ago or so, we'll notice something. There has never been a time without ordeals. So let's begin with our Hebrew Testament, the beginning of our narrative as a people of God. In the 3rd chapter of Genesis, our first named human ancestors succumbed to the temptation to aggrandize themselves by eating from the tree of good and evil. And when things rather quickly go south, the man blames the woman blames the snake, and so is born our human propensity to shirk our responsibility and look for someone to blame for our troubles. What's changed, people? What does this do? This sets ourselves up to experience the consequence of our choice, which is shame and the consciousness of pain. It's the thing we now call suffering. And then just moving along a little bit to the next event in our Hebrew text, we encounter sibling rivalry. Oh yeah, Cain is jealous of his brother Abel, so he kills him. All right, we're still doing that. And moving right along, before we even wander through the 7th chapter of the first book of the Hebrew Testament, almost all of humanity is annihilated with an amazing flood, the Great Flood. So here's the thing. There are great inconsistencies in the stories, among the stories from Genesis. And so we assume they are not historical records. They are our ancestors' attempts to get some perspective, to understand and make meaning out of their mysterious ordeals. Why do women experience pain in childbirth? Why do some people seem to be favored above others? Why is there suffering? Why do people die? Humanity's questions just roll on through the ages. And so the writer of 1 Peter entreats us, beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that is taking place among you and to test you, as though it was something strange happening to you. There has never been a generation that did not have to face ordeals, fiery ordeals. But here's the thing. When the writer includes in his exhortation to test you, he is not describing situations that are set up or designed for us to either pass or fail. In this context, testing means proving, refining. In the text from 1 Peter, testing is a process, as he writes, of being restored, supported, strengthened, and established. Established in relationship to something greater than ourselves. Established in a greater perspective, a ubiquitous perspective that is all-inclusive, something that we call God, something that has been emerging through the billions of fiery ordeals. So for just a little perspective, think about this. 4.5 billion years ago, there was the birth of a planet that we call Earth. And perhaps we could think of this as a big ordeal that set the stage for the first microorganisms that predicated life 3.5 billion years ago. And the Earth's surface broke apart into rocky platelets that kind of moved around, and they gave birth to the first continent named Earth. And that was 3 billion years ago. Sex, now I got your attention. Sex started about 1.7 billion years ago with red algae of all things, which led to multicellular life. But then, on 2 occasions, the entire Earth froze. The subsequent explosion, however, birthed animals with shells and massive diversification. But then, you guessed it, the first mass extinction occurred about 450 million years ago. I love this one. The next thing that happened, fish that walked. Yeah, fish that walked inhabited that single continent of this planet we call Earth until that continent decided to tear herself apart, and then, you got it, another mass extinction, the one that preceded the dinosaurs. You know what happened to the dinosaurs. Mammals, birds, flowers, they all paved the way for the first Homo sapien 200,000 years ago. This is our story, people. And clearly, the path of emerging humanity is one of a series of fiery ordeals. Ordeals through which life passes and from which it emerges restored, supported, strengthened, and established. Now, some of you might remember last week, I quoted an American Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Pema Chodron. She writes, things come together and then they fall apart, and they come together again and then they fall apart again. So the question is not, why do things fall apart? Who is to blame? Why are there ordeals? No. The question is, how do we choose to behave when things fall apart? How do we choose to walk through the inevitable ordeals we must face? The writer of 1 Peter continues and gives us good counsel. Humble yourselves. What does that mean? Find yourself in perspective to things that are bigger. Cast all your anxiety on God. It's not all about you. Discipline yourselves. Keep alert. Why? Because during ordeals, we are exceedingly vulnerable. We are vulnerable to lose our way and to shrink our faith, to shrink our perspective to this little bitty place where I'm a little ink blot, and that's all that there is, and it's all about me. And I'm going to tell you how that happened to me this very week. So, true confessions. It was Wednesday about 1 o'clock, and I was sitting in my office, and I opened up this laptop computer gifted to the church not long ago by Julio. And the thing is, it's a PC and I'm a Mac person. So, because I'm going to hopefully host a Centering Prayer and Lectio Divina Zoom class at 2 p.m. on this laptop, I thought you better do this early, make sure it works. Well, thanks be to God, it was a miracle, it worked. And so I left that laptop open at the end of my desk and turned back to my trusty little computer that I'm used to working with and worked away. And pretty soon it was nearing 2 o'clock, so I turned back to that computer. And looking at me from this screen was a beautiful image of the head of a lion. There was this gorgeous face, and it gave me pause, so I stopped and I looked into his eyes, and I looked at the details of his fur, and I thought, wow, what a noble beast this is. And then I put down the top of the laptop and gathered up my things and walked through the sanctuary to go to the library where I would host this meeting. Well, at 1:58, I lift the top of the laptop and it's blue, bright blue. And no matter what key I poke, nothing happens. It stays blue. And my stomach's starting to churn. And I'm getting sort of nervous. And I think, okay, when all else fails, you turn it off. So I poke the power button and nothing happens. And so I poke it again and nothing happens. And now I'm hearing the sounds of my cell phone buzzing because people are texting. Is the Severing Prayer Cast still on? Did I get the wrong ID? What do I do? Do I answer these people? I'm not going to tell you the things I was thinking out loud about the computer and Zoom classes and the whole you-know-what process. So I gather all this stuff up and I virtually run through the sanctuary to my office, thinking to myself a lot of not nice things and hoping against hope that my little computer would work. I sat down and I realized my heart was pounding, my mind was racing, and my body was reacting as if a lion was chasing me through the sanctuary. Like a roaring lion, your adversary, the devil, prowls around looking for someone to devour, Deborah. That's what First Peter's writer has to tell you today. Humble yourself. Put yourself in perspective. Something bigger. Cast your anxiety into God. Stop being anxious about all of these changes and thinking that you've got to figure it all out and you've got to make it work smoothly. Put your faith in God and resist the temptation of the devil to assume that you are in charge here. Stay alert. Know that you are not alone. That you are part of something so much bigger and that your sisters and brothers in all of the world are undergoing the same kind of suffering. It's all about perspective. Perspective. So whether we choose to begin our story 13.7 billion years ago with this massive fiery ordeal that blew space into smithereens, or a mere 3,400 years ago with our ancient Hebrew ancestors while they were attempting to make sense of their mystifying ordeals, or our most recent encounter with that roaring lion who is trying to steal our peace and shake our faith. There is no escaping ordeals. We do not deserve them. We do not deserve them. They are a condition of life, a consequence of our capacity to grow and to reproduce and to change preceding death. This is what is life, people. So, dear people of God, the question before us is, what shall we do when the lion roars? And I know you all know the answer. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I let go of my desire for things to be different than they are. And there we have it. We've raised ourselves up. We've been risen into the glory of God, into that higher perspective that's ubiquitous and all-inclusive. This is our discipline. This is how we stay alert. This is how we remain with God and can say, bring on the ordeals. Amen.